Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning into the first ever Star Wars video on the Gavin Partridge YouTube channel. So, we're going to bring you Star Wars content 2 or 3 times a week on this channel. We're going to be going over all of the latest news and developments with episode 9 as the information comes in, and we'll be talking about the past films as well. We're talking about the prequels, the originals, and also, of course, the sequel trilogy. And that's where we're going to start off with today's first video. Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, has given a very interesting interview where he's basically lambasted the people involved in the sequel trilogy, and particularly The Last Jedi, but not only The Last Jedi, also The Force Awakens Episode 7. And we'll discuss that very shortly. Just to say that if you enjoy Star Wars content and you want to see more of it on this channel, then please like and subscribe to the channel. Let YouTube know that you're enjoying what we're doing. The channel's been dormant for around 5 years, so we was demonetized, and we want to get monetization back up and running. Got to get to 1,000 subscribers to be able to do that. So, I say please subscribe and like the videos, and let us know that you're enjoying them. Right, so we're going to get on with it then, and this is at the website denofgeek.com, and I'll leave a link to denofgeek.com in the description here at YouTube. Mark Hamill did an interview a few days ago now where he was talking about primarily a new character that is going to be playing called Talos in a series called Nightfall. So it was primarily about that, but he did give some reactions to Star Wars and to The Force Awakens. So we won't go through the whole interview, of course. We'll scroll down to the relevant part. There's a lot on this new series that Mark is going to be doing. But if we go down to here, this is where it starts to get quite interesting in terms of Star Wars from around this period, this area just here. So let's just highlight that very quickly. And what happens within the article is that it says Hamill's complicated feelings regarding the fate of the character with which he is most associated have hit headlines since the release of The Last Jedi in December 2017. The thing is, Luke changed so much between the first trilogy and the last trilogy, Mark says. I got myself into trouble. I made a vow. I said that I'm never going to talk about the movies anymore because I think it's important for the audience to see them. My problem was I wasn't dealing with social media back then. He's talking about back when he was making the original films, where you say something and it goes around the world in 24 hours. If I were to answer your questions on paper, I'll think, oh, that sounds a little strong, or I shouldn't say this, but I have a tendency to just talk and talk and talk, and you can cherry pick, you know. I'll be reading something and saying, what moron said this, and then realise, oh, it's me. They can take selective comments that you've made out of context and use it to support their argument. See, Mark hated Star Wars. Did I? Asked Mark rhetorically. And then he goes on to say he's reasonable and even-handed on the subject, emphasising that any difference of opinions are down to the profound commitment he feels to the saga and to its many devotees. As a fan himself, he says he says he gets it. I was once describing Star Wars fans and said they're passionate, they're opinionated, and they feel a sense of ownership because they've got invested so much time in these characters and these stories. And I realised I was describing myself. It can get you into trouble because I don't control the storylines. I'm sort of like a musician. I read the music and I try to play it to the best of my ability. That doesn't always necessarily mean I'd like the tune. But that's not my job. So here, Mark, I think, is telling us that he definitely didn't like the direction that they've taken Luke in during the last 2 films, The Force Awakens and particularly The Last Jedi. But he can't do anything about it. It's just the actor. He's told what he's got to do in the script, and he just has to act out the part. So there's very little that he can actually do. if a director and the creators of the film decide they want to go in a certain direction with his character, then that's the direction he has to go in. Mark then goes on to talk about the flop that was Solo and the reasons for that, so he won't go into that, and then we'll pick up the story just here. So some decisions still rankle, though. He remains shocked by Han Solo's fate, slain by his own son and Luke's nephew, the powerful dark side warrior Kylo Ren, formerly known as Ben Solo, in the Sequel Trilogy's opening installment, The Force Awakens. I just thought Luke's never going to see his best friend again. You look at it in a self-centered way. I said that was a big mistake, that those three people would never reunite in any way. He's talking about Han, Luke, and Leia, of course, there. I guess I was wrong, because nobody seems to care. I have to stipulate that I care, but it didn't really seem to affect the larger audience. But I have to say, that was one of the things I noticed about The Force Awakens, that we didn't get the big three, Han, Luke, and Leia, we didn't get them reunited on screen. I think it was a huge mistake, although it didn't affect the box office of The Force Awakens. It was such a missed opportunity, and we can never get that opportunity again. I mean, if you're going to have a sequel to Return of the Jedi and The Empire Strikes Back and the original Star Wars film, if you're going to have a sequel, you've got the top three actors, Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Han, Luke, and Leia, all together for this film, then why on earth wouldn't you want to reunite them on screen and have them playing off against one another, at least for a while, during that film? It just makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, what they did there. But let's carry on with what Mark is saying. So he goes on, so we picked it up at the audience never really seemed to affect the larger audience. Luke, Han, Leia will never be together again, and I'll probably never get to work with Harrison Ford again. Then the second thing was that it killed me off, so they killed Mark Hamill's character off. I thought, oh, okay, you should push my death off to the last one, to episode 9. That's what I was hoping when I came back. No cameos and a run of the trilogy contract. Did I get those things? Because as far as I'm concerned, the end of episode 7 is really the beginning of episode 8. I got one movie. They totally hornswoggled me, which apparently means they totally tricked me. Mark feels that he was tricked by Lucasfilm Limited and by Disney in the way that his character was portrayed in these films. This is a very, very unhappy actor when you consider that he's still under contract, he's still working to some degree on episode 9, although there is a mild spoiler in there in that he's saying that really he's only going to have a cameo in episode 9, so he barely features in that film as well. But considering he's still under contract, that is one very, very unhappy actor. As we know from when The Last Jedi was released, that he's pretty unhappy, to say the least, with what they did to him. A little bit, what they did to his character. A little bit more, it says that he's made peace with any unfulfilled expectations, however. So, listen, I never expected to come back. We had a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's what I said. Why mess with it? It's not something that worries me, because it's all about the new generation, as it should be. I disagree with that. Yes, okay, the new films have got to focus on a new audience, they've got to introduce new characters, but that should not be at the expense of the original characters. You don't have to kill off your original characters. You don't have to sort of destroy their characters in many ways and completely change them to build the other characters up. The two can go with one another. They should have started episode 7 with the focus on the original characters, on Han, Luke, and Leia, and then they should have gradually introduced the new characters, and so by the time you get through to episode 9, then the new characters will be ready to pick up the slack and take over the story. But they really did not have to sort of character assassinate Luke Skywalker in the way that they did to make the new characters worthwhile, and the new characters should not have come at the expense of the old characters. And then the last bit, some changes had to be made, however. They have been walking by C-3PO, not even acknowledging him. This is in The Last Jedi, of course, when Luke does his projection on Crate. So I said, I can't do that. The Last Jedi director, Rian Johnson, said, okay, go over and do whatever. So I went over and I did whatever. They said in the script, forget the past, kill it if you have to, and they're certainly doing a pretty good job. That is one very, very unhappy actor at the way his character has evolved through these films, and I think also on a personal level he sounds like he's unhappy with the way he was brought into these films as an actor. So on a personal level, I think he does feel a sense of, I wouldn't necessarily say betrayal there, but certainly, he talks about being tricked. So that's a pretty strong word to say that he feels he's been tricked by Disney and by Lucasfilm with the sequel trilogy. We know that he signed up for these films when George Lucas was still developing the outline for the story for the 3 sequel films, and he came into it, I think, believing that even if George wouldn't be directing, that he'd be overseeing the project, if you like. So it would kind of like be outsourced to a new generation of directors, but you still have George as a guiding hand, sort of overseeing the project. And we know, I'll go over this in future updates, we know that in 2013 something happened between George Lucas and Lucasfilm Limited and Disney that saw George's story outlines discarded. They were thrown in the bin, and an entirely new story was created, and George completely walked away from Star Wars and from the sequel trilogy at that point. I think by then Mark had already signed on, as had Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. They'd signed up, so they was within contract. They couldn't get out of, or Mark couldn't get out of out of the contract that he was under. But I think the way this has developed right from the very beginning, when he believed that George would be overseeing the sequel trilogy, and then as it's gradually progressed on with George walking away, and then a new story being created, I think Mark feels that he was pretty much tricked into the sequel trilogy as it currently is. I don't think he was expecting in any way that his character would be treated like this. His overall experience as an actor would be as it has been on the sequel trilogy. So he's really unhappy about this. I think if you imagine that he's under contract, but he's still saying, even though he's under contract, he's still working with these people, he's still saying that he thinks he's been tricked, then I think you can say he's a very, very unhappy at the way this has developed. And I'm not surprised, really, because I was shocked when I saw The Last Jedi. Initially, it's kind of like just sitting back and, just sort of trying to process what they've done with him. I mean, right from the very first scene that he's in, where he tosses his father's, Anakin's, lightsaber away like a piece of trash, just throws it away like it's insignificant, it doesn't matter. Right from that scene, it's just a continuous sort of assassination of his character, up until Crate, when he does his Force projection. And yes, you do have to sometimes knock down a character to build them back up, but there was never really a payoff for what they did to Luke Skywalker. They destroyed the character totally in the first hour of the film, and then he shows up on Crate, does his Force projection, and then dies. I mean, there was never really any sort of payoff for building the character back up from the low that he'd been brought down to. So you never get a sense that, okay, he's been brought down as low as he can go, but then he comes back up and isn't that amazing. You don't get that sense at all, really. You just get the force projection, and then alone on that island, he just looks at the sun and dies. The end for the character. Of course, he will be back in episode 9 as a Force ghost, but Mark has confirmed that's pretty much a cameo. And it was just very, very strange the way they have dealt with Luke Skywalker in these films. So all the way along, it seems like they sort of felt that Luke Skywalker was a problem to be managed. Whereas, I mean, Luke Skywalker is like the epitome of everything that's good and everything that's positive, the most optimistic person in the universe. He turns his evil father, Darth Vader, from the dark side. He turns him back to the light. He's willing to sacrifice his life for the love of his father. I mean, he's just an amazing character. And then you have this character as a more mature man, an older man, in your sequel trilogy, and instead of embracing the character and having him as a mentor and having him really as a powerful sort of Jedi Knight, instead of doing that with the character, you sort of see him as a problem. So when there's making The Force Awakens, the original writer, Michael Arndt, said that every time Luke Skywalker showed up in the script, he was overshadowing everybody else, as though that was a problem. But he's doing that because he's Luke Skywalker. He's the epitome of everything that is good in the universe. And you will think that the creators of these films will want to embrace this character and make him the focal point, at least of episode 7, and then I suppose gradually move away a little bit as you go into the newer characters in episodes 8 and 9. But to just see the character as a problem that's got to be managed and overcome, it's a very, very strange way of making Star Wars, and I'm sure this wouldn't have happened if George was involved. I'm sure that Luke Skywalker would have been treated very, very differently if George Lucas had been overseeing this. But we are where we are. Mark's very unhappy with what's happened, and we've just got to wait and see what happens next with the character. But obviously, from what Mark said, we can't expect much in episode 9, really, because it seems as though Luke is going to be barely in it, and he's just going to be like a character. So what do you think about Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi? Was you disappointed? Have I got this wrong? Is my judgment about this wrong? Was the character treated as you wanted? Maybe you thought the character progression was good, and I've got this wrong. So let me know through the comments what you think. What did you think to The Last Jedi? What do you think to Luke Skywalker? What did you think to what Mark Hamill has got to say? Let's try and make this an interactive community. Let's keep it friendly. Star Wars can cause passions to run rather highly, so if you want to keep the comments friendly, but do let me know through the comments what you think. And yeah, I'll always be around to read the comments and see what you're saying. But I think we can say that that is one very, very unhappy actor. Right, so that's the first Star Wars video done, and we'll be doing at least a couple more through the week. I'm not sure when they will be, but I want to get at least one more done in the next few days. So just keep checking back to the channel. As I say, like and subscribe. That's the main message. We'll build the channel up together, and there'll be more Star Wars content coming very, very soon. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.